Hello, everybody. My name's Arnie Broughton. I'm a senior advisor with the Ethics and Compliance Initiative, and I'd like to welcome you to ECI's August Best Practice Forum, Innovations in E&C Training. First of all, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Conversant One Trust, and also our presenters, because we have presenters not only from Conversant, but also from Dell and Lockheed Martin. So first of all, I'd like for you all to go to your chat box and let us know where you're joining us from. Say hi to everybody, to your community of practitioners. Great. Good to see all of you. Now, just to let you know how our session is going to flow today, we'll have 90 minutes of presentations that will be followed by a 30-minute BPF interchange. And that interchange will be where you have an opportunity to visit with the presenters one-on-one and also to interact with your colleagues who are on the webinar today and offer some of your own insights about innovations in training. Since this is a best practice forum, it's a great opportunity to learn not only from our presenters, but also from each other. You will be able to introduce some questions by using the polls tab, which is next to your chat and chat tab, and you can submit questions to the presenters at any time during the presentation. Most of our questions will be answered in the interchange. But if we have time, we'll get to some of the questions as you're posing them during the actual presentations themselves. Now, the interchange will be in another room, but I'll tell you how to get into the other room when we get to the 90-minute mark. And so without any further delay, I'd like to introduce our first presenter, Justin Gordon. And Justin is the lead learning designer in global ethics and compliance with Dell Technologies. He's been there over 4 years, and he supports their web, video, and e-learning projects for Dell's global ethics and compliance team's digital transformation. Justin has more than a decade of experience in graphic design on the web and in print and through mobile, video, animation, and social media platforms. And he's going to be introducing some exciting innovations for us in terms of what he calls M-learning, making training mobile, memorable, and measurable. And so please join me in welcoming Justin to ECI's Best Practice Forum. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you for having me, Arnie.
It's great to have you.
Thanks. Good to be here. All right. So what is M-learning? So there's learning, which is like, an example would be squeezing your own orange juice, right? It takes a lot of bags. It's really a lot of bags of oranges. You have to cut them all, you have to squeeze them, and you get this beautiful juice afterwards, and you can hand it to one person. It's just, so personal. E-learning is sort of like taking that concept with a bunch of cups underneath the orange juice squeezer, and you're going to miss some things. It's expensive, it's not really scalable, it's not really personable. Now, M-learning is using the concept of mobile learning and of mobile design backwards, because everyone has a phone nowadays. And so being able to reach them into these really small chunks of courses to remind them on subject matters like bid rigging or corruption. And they're great use in remediation. So this is when we get the call, if someone's done something wrong, we need a path out. And they also have to be so we have to be able to distribute them to their mobile devices, and once you design for mobile, that's a responsive setting, which then scales up to browsers or anything else. So we want to be able to include everyone. But I'm going to give you an example. So we had a bid rigging course that needed to go to South Korea. And in learning about the lore of South Korea, there's a character called the Gumio. and it's a nine-tailed fox, and it's usually will lure you out into the forest and eat your heart out. And that's sort of what bid rigging does. And so we had the opportunity to create a course with those themes, and to be able to have a regional lore to engage the client. And the first thing I want to talk about is your structure, and what does this script look like in order to get it running, and how can you standardize it so that all your SMEs, your subject matter experts, can sign off on it. And if it's not written, it doesn't go into the course. So this is what you're going to be seeing. You also need your script locked before you do anything, because as you're going to see, here's an example. There's a lot of drawing involved, right? And you've got to work fast, and you've got to be able to have flexibility, create characters in front, side, three-quarter views, and be able to repurpose them. So if it's not locked, you're wasting time, and someone might come back and just say, hey, Gumio's a bad idea. Why'd you spend all that time drawing stuff? So so this is what it looks like. And what I've done is I've gone ahead and standardized this so that it doesn't matter what course we're talking about. Every client that comes to me and says, I need a course, I know about this, because what I know about is how to make courses and how to do design. What they know about is their subject matter, and they just need it in a format that's really accessible and easy for them to parse. And then I take a pass at it and I rewrite it. So I try to find the voice of the narration in here. So that's the first steps to it. And it always comes from a simple idea grows into this. And I'll show you the English translated version. But this is the cool thing about using Articulate's Rise 360 application, because one, it's HTML5, so it's completely responsive and in multiple versions. You can then preview the client and see how it looks on mobile, how it looks on tablet and phone. But we'll do the English version. And again, it's just like Gumio the nine-tailed fox, bid rigging, eat your heart out. So let's refresh on how to avoid both. So I'll walk you through this. And as you see, I always want the learner to be able to know their completion status over here, and also how many sections they're going to do, because that deals, once they know that, they're a little calmer, and they're more likely to be able to retain what we're trying to give them. I mean, that's the biggest struggle, is everyone's done their annual compliance training and they've tried to blow through it, and they're not getting the information they have. So really getting them in a space in which they're ready to receive, and I mean, they're not being fully engaged, but they can enjoy this better than they do their other courses they have to take. Now, what we're doing here is making them click a button, making them acknowledge what I've just told them, stopping them from continuing on, is really important, because it leads to defendability too. It's like, did you take the course? Yes. In order to complete the course, and we can go and see that they had 100% completion, they had to see each of these points that we really want them to remember and work on. So you can see, offering a higher bid, subcontracting a part of a main contract for the losing bidder. And again, just being playful and open, but keeping to the point. And then a review. So instead of having a big test at the end, which everyone's bracing for, we're able to go ahead and ask questions throughout this that then would equal that. So, and of course, abstaining from a bidding round or taking Gumio to eat your family. And that's the incorrect one. So we ask them if they understand, and then we're going to ask them how to identify bid rigging. So here we're creating these scenarios, right? And upfront, it's all, you can see everything of what you're going to experience, and tell them to begin it. And here, making them click, making them push forward, trying to find the right metaphors to show when one agrees to bid and the other one agrees to abstain or submit a dummy bid. Oh yeah, blue win the contract. That's a surprise. And guess what? It's time for blue to submit the dummy bid and red wins. So that's playful, but then real simple. Do not collaborate with competitors to determine winning bid. That's the most important thing. And you say, I understood. So, and we have several other scenarios here that we'll go through. Telling channel partners what to bid. And this is the case where it's like once you have a Gumio or any kind of mascot, you can just change the color of it. And you know your budget is this. Tell what price to submit. Green submits $10. Oh, surprise. Orange submits a 9. Red submits the 5 and wins the bid. Hey, and guess what? Don't do that. It's really simple. So so you basically get the idea of the scenarios and trying to use this form of illustration in order to bring engagement to the audience. And I'm sorry, I've got to do all these in order to proceed, because just like the learner would. Okay. So let me jump. Another way of doing this now is do you remember how disappointed you were, or when you disappointed a coach or a teacher or a parent or a lover, and that feeling, like you bounce back so much quicker by disappointing someone? You're more engaged than you are when you're often rewarded. And so here's a quiz that's set up, a conversational quiz where we're doing that. So every time you want to keep a good relationship with all partners, you can't let one partner lag in sales. How about you take care of the partner by ensuring they win a couple of deals? And you say, yes. And they're like, wrong. Sometimes the monkey falls out of the tree. So our Gumio is really happy every time you get it wrong. And when you get it right, she's very disappointed. So, and if you get them all wrong, she gets to eat your heart out, right? And we'll say, yes. And again, woohoo. So in addition to, yeah, correct, but I'm warming up. So you just disappointed her. And so then people are paying attention while this is happening, and being able to be playful. After you've taught them what it is and defined it, what the consequences of it are, we have to step up and say, look, on the Dell side, for Dell technology, this is how you report it, and this is our policies, and don't hesitate. You're going to be protected from retaliation, and you understand how to report it. Do we have to make ethics line bigger? No, thank you. I understand it. Good job. You're done. Let's conclude with the summary and just a quick wrap up here, and what you're going to say, connect the pieces. So, and provide a playful game for them. However, this is going to be changed because we just learned that it's actually doesn't function really well on screen readers. So make sure everything, and we're going to talk about accessibility too. Don't participate? Hey, boom. Well then, you have completed the course, and I don't get to eat your heart or your liver. Go forth and do not bid rig, or I will find you. Sleep well. Thank you for completing this course. So, and after this goes out, and after people have completed it, and they're given a very specific amount of time, it can be 30 to 45 days. What's immediately fired off to them is a survey afterwards, and we got really good feedback on this. People really enjoyed it, and were able to they felt blown away by it. So that what we then were able to do is we're in the process of developing another version of it, which would include a global version of it with a new character, so less nails to draw, less tails to draw. But this is Buster Fox, and he's going to be our mascot. And with him, we'll be able to create other assets throughout. Like every quarter, we'll do a "Don't let this happen to you," in which Buster Fox, an email or an infographic or even an animation that then tells people like, "Hey, I'm Buster. I'm here to corrupt you. I'm a corruption chaos expert, and I'm here to tempt you from this. So gifts and hospitality. Um, you know, so what's great is we're beginning to be able to reuse these assets and build a fun way of talking with our clients and our 130 personnel to go forward. Now, I wanted to, so that's the content side of stuff, and I want to talk about distribution, and I want to talk about accessibility. So actually, I'm going to talk about accessibility real fast because it's really important, and we're doing leaps and bounds with this. So with accessibility and within your design of your courses, you can integrate workflows that slowly, like as you get approval of the images that you're using, write in your alt tags then. As you get approved, as you're doing your design and layout of what it looks like, make sure your contrast is checked. And these stats are real. I mean, there are people out there, and especially with COVID, they have been disproportionately affected. Now, you got to think that there are other people using your courses in different ways that you didn't even think of. Like, for example, this gentleman is using a pointer in order to interact on his stuff. You have people with low vision. You have people that use speaking technology. So like, make sure you get those closed captions in there and or those transcripts along. And here's a great example. So these are our statements about accessibility now. So if you're colorblind, this is what that looks like to you. You're not going to get that information. And of the different types of color blindness, this is what on the left, what the normal vision would look like. This is how people are seeing it. So it's very important that as you design your courses, like you don't put green text on blue backgrounds. I mean, consider how many people, they're not able to see that simple, lovely message in the bottom right-hand corner if you're colorblind. So, so what we did was I did a audit of our annual compliance training courses, and there are three types. There's multiple ways of testing it, and these are 3 free readers that you can download and attach to Chrome. And just as a run through, we're getting all these things, and that just broke my heart. I mean, the fact that people were saying I had to have someone read the course to me is just, that's not, as a technology company that's supposed to make things better in the world, to advance, that's unacceptable. And so we took a bunch of classes and reached out to the newly formed accessibility team, and they provided some great guidance here. And I don't want you to think like accessibility is you have to like redo everything. Sometimes it's a simple nudge. Like, for example, this is the player in which our annual compliance training course is sat in, and this color, this is what it shows up on the color contrast, right? It does pass, but I want a AAA rating, right? And look at this. Our brand colors have another darker blue. And simply by changing to that, we jumped to AAA. And here, let me move that. Look, we doubled the contrast ratio just by a simple change like that. So think, as you're doing this, think of these things, and, make sure to do your alt tags, and make sure to design so that there's people with vision impairment can hear your content, or that the screen reader can read it to them. That's the other thing. Design with contrast in mind. Don't do your graphs in blues and greens beside each other. There's nothing wrong with using black on a white background or a dark blue. Sometimes simple is light and easy. And think about the size of your buttons or your hotspots that you incorporate into your courses. And that's really important, because someone with their shaky hands are not going to be able to click that button as well as someone that doesn't have it. Does that make sense? So yeah, we did the audit, had everything completely, we got our nose bloody on that. But what it did was it provided us the opportunity to do user experience testing. And I highly recommend that you test these courses. with as many people as you can outside of your group, because you've seen it so many times, you start forgetting what it looks like. And we're getting good feedback. And with that feedback, we can actually then do something. And that's what matters. And this year, at the end of this month, we will have fixed almost 95% of those problems. There are problems within the software that we need the vendors to work with on us, but this problem is going to be solved, and we are committed to making it right and empowering every member of our team to be able to be their authentic self and not have to self identify and just do their work, bring their best self forward. So the other thing I'm going to talk about is now that we have a course, now that we have it accessible to everyone, distribution ways to distribute it amongst everyone. And I would like to introduce, let me get this bar. I'm going to introduce you to the My Ethics app. And what you have here is a mobile app on both iOS and Android. And we did a lot of asking of managers and individuals throughout in different countries that are Dell employees. Like, what do you need in order to have better one-on-ones? How can we reach, your compliance training? And do you want to be able to do it on a train? Do you want to be, what can we do to make that better for you? And what we did was created My Ethics. So at the bottom, those that have opted in to push notifications can always receive updates from us. And here's a case where Dell was named the most ethical company for the 9th time. And we were able to send that out to them. They could then tap to learn more, and that would take them to a blog post, which then, because people, ethics is always like, well, justify your being, how are you helping sales? And here we go. We created these PowerPoints that said, these are the conversations you need to have about winning, being a 9-time winner that you can have with your customer. The companies that have this award usually make 6 or 7 times more than companies that don't. Talk to them about, we're retaining our talent, therefore we're doing more digital transformation and more innovation. So that's the nice thing about being able to push out content, infographics, videos to the users of this. Then of course we have the code of conduct, and so many managers we interviewed said, before I go into a one-on-one or before I am talking to my team, I'd like to review, come in with a piece from the code of conduct to cover over. And so they wanted to have that on their phone. They get either the PDF, which is real light and easy to, it's not heavy as bandwidth, or they could view it, which is what you could hear. And then you could view it online, which is more of an interactive, pretty video thing. And over here, we made it so the code of conduct is completely searchable. So if you had a question about what kind of gifts you can receive or give, or if public customers and all that, it's all right here. Then we get into the compliance training. And okay, of all the disruptive things you could do, is the best thing you can do is make people's life easier. Prior to joining this team, they had been using usernames and passwords for everyone, right? And 85% of the things that came into the ethics line, the email line, were, what is my password? What is all that? So we just shifted over and made single sign-on, because it knows, and people just get right into their course. And again, there's another issue about learner retention. Getting people in the state that they can receive stuff, and scrambling to find your password is not one of those. So here we have, through Workday, where we know everyone and what they need to be assigned. It all gets sent out to them. And it's inclusive. What language do you want to use it in? And then here's an example of our Standing Strong Together course, which, people were able to experience and have conversations about. And again, this is like Marcus Shute Jr., who was told he would never be a successful lawyer because of his dreadlocks. And here he is. He has his own firm and represents sports and entertainment clients. So here, this is where you can see where the M Learning, it's not just annual compliance training that gets pushed out to people. Regionally, I can send this to just like 15 people in South Korea that need to take this course or anywhere, and assign on the back end when they're supposed to complete it and get it done. And then finally, the managers, everyone can see where their completion status is, who on their team, and it's always one level down. So it's like SVPs see the VPs and the VPs can see that. So it's not really diluted, but this way, a carrot and a stick question you can now have those conversations with your team members and say, or your direct reports, and say, hey, why haven't you finished the set? Is it, do I need to give you more time or schedule time or whatever? And then finally, you need to be able to report a concern anywhere, and you can report it online, you can call it in, or it might be an HR issue, and we'll send you over to there. So we're trying really hard to triage the ethics requests that come in. But you can file a report, and you can file it in any language. And real simple, without any Byzantine sentences, it's like where, who, what, and then your information, and the ability to report anonymously. Because a lot of people, are really apprehensive at this point. If something is happening to them, they might be more forthcoming with the information if they're anonymous. But if they're anonymous, they need to be able to follow up. So you create a password, it generates a report key, and then when you want to see where your investigation is, you enter in your report key and your password, and you'll get that information to you. So, and there you have it. And that's the My Ethics app. Where am I at time? Just wanna make sure. Okay. So once you've made a course, it's accessible to everyone, it's inclusive to everyone, and you can take it anywhere in the entire world. You can start doing cool stuff. You can do cool, fun stuff, like getting people. You can do little contests that encourage adoption of your tech. So what we did was we got these 50 Pioneer hybrid vests, and we encourage people to just show us your completion. Did you complete your course on your mobile device? And we had, in like 25 minutes, we had 85 people show up, and we were able to send them these My Ethics Pioneer vests that have the icon as the zipper. And of course, that happened right before our Texas polar vortex. So they really liked those a lot. They all arrived like the week before, and everyone was complaining before. It's like, it's too hot to wear it. It's Valentine's Day. It's like, just wait, you're in Texas. The other thing too is after that was done, we created this portal to allow everyone to be able to give everyone a front door to all the policies, ethics concerns for it. And so that launches also from the app. They can see their courses here, but it's one place. And we've really reduced the number of requests that are coming in because, like, for example, outside activity disclosure, approval for planned events, those were coming in through email. They were coming in through the ethics line, and there's no place for that. So we needed to automate those things, because once you can automate that, then you begin to start innovating. You have time to draw a lot of gumios, I guess one would say. And as you're looking forward, I mean, what's to stop artificial intelligence and machine learning from turning ethics departments into gig workers? So you're always trying to find new ways to say, this is how I can streamline this. This is how we can present this information more creatively. This is how the learner can retain it better and perhaps modify their behave better. And if not, and they do it again, we have defendability. We can fire them. They can be confronted with the facts that they knew they weren't supposed to do this, and they did it anyways. So that's a basic overview of M-learning and the many things you could do with it.
That's really great. And Justin, so much so much content and rich information that you've presented us with. And we do have a few minutes to ask some questions of you before we go on to our next presenter. One of the things, you had a lot of information there that you pulled up on different strategies that people can use. And I'm sure that that would be really useful and helpful. We're, of course, recording this, and people who are registered can come back in and view this if they want to. But one thing we may want to talk about is maybe how we can extract some of that information on some of the suggestions and tips. Some of the things that I observed as I was going through this was just pulling out and extracting some of the principles of mobile technology and how to use it for learning. Things like that, and this would apply anywhere, I think, is that the student knows the completion status and how many sessions that they need to complete, and that has a real impact on people's mindset and the being calm in terms of moving forward in something. They know what the landscape is, making it possible for them to do it when they want to and where they want to. Making students, really engaging them on clicking the buttons and say, I understand this concept before moving on. There just seem to be some real great principles there. Can you talk any more about that? And particularly like around the disappointment factor, I was not following quite so closely in terms of how that is being leveraged. And is that a cultural difference, like with Korea, that seemed to resonate more clearly with them, or is that something that translates across cultures?
I think it translates across cultures because when I remember being a catcher in baseball, and a soft pitch came through and I dropped it, and just, the look of the coach was just like, he wasn't even in and I knew it. And I was just like, after that, no ball was dropped. I scrambled. I actually got in trouble. The ref had to he kicked me from behind because I started reaching into the box. So the most of the time we're like, you got the answer right. Congratulations. Cool. Okay. But in this case, we're playing it like, you got the answer right. I want to eat you. I want to corrupt you. I want you to engage in a side agreement with me, whatever those are. And so that's where I know there's concepts of gamification and submergent tech, and I disagree with them because that's for the sake of gaming, entering another world. And there probably are moments, but for these tight courses that are used and to be done in 5 to 10 minutes, and also to get people back to their job because they already have a full schedule, we just try to keep them tight and use them as a refresher. I think too, there's all kinds of concepts on button colors, and people love to more so red buttons get clicked on in user experience in web-based design than other ones, except checkout boxes. So, and you can really think about like the emotions that you're playing with as you design stuff on backgrounds. Like the speak up section, or like we do not retaliate. We really want that to be remembered by people. Then put it on red, and then even when that contrasts down on like grayscale, it's a dark gray, so it still pops enough out to them. So those are some of the thoughts I have.
No, that's great. I was really fascinated too by your accessibility content. And in fact, I never knew I was colorblind until this moment. But it just does show to me how important it is to reach out to people who learn in different ways, not necessarily because of a preference, but just because we don't design training in ways that honor the the differences between people. I hesitate to even say disabilities, just different ways that people learn and engage. And one of the things that kind of came up for me too, that was embedded and implicit in what you were talking about is design thinking and empathy mapping and getting in the head of your learner and connecting with that and integrating that into your design.
And you've got to be very careful, like when you do learning. I mean, I guess you get so used to it that it becomes your day-to-day thing that you almost have to method act. Like, okay, I'm going to clear my head, and I'm working in accounting now. I'm suddenly an accountant, and I have all these spreadsheets I've got to go through, and my boss just said I have to take this freaking course. Okay, what am I going to, and then, so that's sort of how you have to approach it. And the same with accessibility. Blur your eyes, take your glasses off. Can you read this? Should it then have an audio file? Should it have been a podcast instead? Because there's multiple ways that people are learning, and you can even see the development on LinkedIn Learning, formerly Lynda. A lot of their courses are now podcasts in which you can just listen to the audio because you're walking, you're out there, you're cleaning the house. That's all. And there are other people that I remember reading reports too about people that are bothered by the lights in a building, the halogen lights, that they actually are feeling the frequencies or hearing the frequencies. That is not a good time to take an annual compliance training course and have them remember anything. So remote, I mean, what COVID has taught us is you have to find your optimized place and time to work in. That's, like there's sometimes much better for me to work in the evening, or anything I have to write or really concentrate on, I do that in the morning. And then I try to move repetitive stuff to the afternoon. And that also goes with Central Texas's allergies, as the allergies get higher,
and I think that's really something that's going to become ever more important as we migrate into a hybrid environment. And I know Dell has been involved in remote work a long time, for many years. And so it's great to learn from you. We did have a question here about technology. And the question was, is this app off the shelf or does it have to be developed? And I think I don't know if they were talking about the app on the phone. I'm sure that was developed in-house, but also—
No, actually, we used our LRN partner.
Oh, okay,
and
great.
I highly recommend, because they introduced us to several other companies that were using it, and that was fascinating, because you realize how different everyone. A pharmaceutical company with all their reps, they're all on tablets now. They're not on desktops. The John Deere or someone else that had farmers, so on tractors that have to take their training. Mobile phone, company phones for everyone. It's just, and they're still getting all their compliance done. And that really gave us a lot of time. So if you're going to design an app, and because you can do the sun and the moon, that doesn't mean you have to have the sun and the moon in there at the same time. You just need to have a plan of what do your learners need. Is this going to be for managers? What is this going to be for everyone? We're now putting we're making so that you can reach all your policies right in this app, because that was the second feedback loop that we got of surveying. And then the other one was a calculator, gift calculator inside, or per diem calculator inside, and that makes it valuable to people once we're allowed to travel again. So all those things you need to start thinking of in addition to your training, because you're not just, ethics isn't just training, it's ethics. So.
Well, I know that we're going to have lots of other questions for you when we get to the interchange, but I just want to thank you for making such a great presentation to us. And we're going to be moving on now to our next presentation. And our next presenter is David Gebler. And David is a senior manager for ethics engagement and integrated education at Lockheed Martin. He leads efforts there to develop, maintain, and implement integrated education strategies for ethics awareness and business conduct compliance training. I might note that David from 2008 to 2017 was actually president of the Scout Group, and he developed and deployed some proprietary diagnostic tools that help companies improve decision-making and enhance performance through better understanding and management of the non-financial and tangible aspects of their businesses. In fact, he's the author of the 3 power values: how commitment, integrity, and transparency remove the roadblocks to performance. And so David's going to give us some insight here into lessons learned from a tumultuous year, a year that we all shared, and share with us some practical takeaways of how they have approached training at Lockheed Martin. Welcome, David.
Great. Thank you, Ernie. I know we were working on some technical issues, so hopefully you can see me, you can hear me, and the PowerPoint is up. I want to really, Justin just made my life so much more difficult because my boss, Blair Marks, is watching this, and I just have about 45 more things to do on my to-do list. So thanks a lot, Justin. It was fantastic. So we're going to look more today on some of the content issues that we faced last year, and for sure every organization faced last year. And just about, I don't know, 2 months ago we were joking about how 2020 was really over, and now it seems like 2020 is never going to end. But we addressed, well, 3 main issues that I want to share with us, with you today. And mostly I want to focus in on just the experiences, and as we get to the question section, about some of the process work that we did. And we're going to talk about 3 different segments. The first will be around how to react quickly and we'll talk about that in a second, about the George Floyd murder, and how did we react in terms of the right way to talk about this issue within the organization, not societally, but within the organization. And then we want to talk about what we had to do to pivot when we do our live ethics awareness training, and all of a sudden the modalities changed on a dime when we were dealing with the lockouts last March. And then the last piece I want to talk about is what can we do, again, somewhat ad hoc, but thinking about, well, what's on the mind of our employees, and how do we continue to present ethics engagement as something that is real, especially with, we've got so many thousands of employees who are now working from home for the first time, and just the level of disruption. So those are the 3 segments that we're going to be talking about today. So the first piece I want to talk about is the race issue, and about how we reacted to it. And as we all painfully know, so the George Floyd was murdered on May 25th of last year. And so that was Memorial Day weekend. And by the beginning of the next week, we were hearing from our diversity and inclusion partners about the growing number of employee dialogues that just needed to take place. And what was happening is that many leaders throughout the organization knew they wanted to do something, but they didn't know what to do, and they weren't comfortable facilitating. And for our GD&I partner, all she was really asking in these employee sessions is, how are you feeling now? And what can we do to help you? But what emerged quickly just in this first few days were some key issues that were not going to go away. One was for our African-American employees talking about, I'm always on guard at work, and I am fearful for my children. A number of employees were saying, the Black employees were saying, why haven't I heard from my white colleagues about this? And a number of white employees were saying, I don't know what to say. Anything I would say would feel trite. I don't know what white privilege is, and I don't even know how to touch that. And so we were realizing just within that first week that there was issues regarding how to talk about these issues, which we really needed to address. At first, we thought, well, we could recut an existing video that we had with regards to respect and civility, and then we quickly realized that that is not enough. So by the next day, we needed to do something on our own. And so we focused on and quickly sent this up through our senior vice president to the executive leadership team. We needed to focus on a video that had multiple voices, multiple perspectives, but the focus was on the need to listen and hear one another. We realized that the issue for ethics was not certainly taking a side on the issue. We have no desire to even begin to frame that. We didn't want to be even labeled whether we were taking a side. But the logic is, and this was from Leo McKay, our senior vice president, is we have to know how to talk to one another. We don't care what the issues are so much as how do we talk about it respectfully. And so we wanted to take that perspective, which is why we ended up talking about this video called Respectfully Talking About Race. We interviewed 18 people and we got it out the door fast. We interviewed 18 people and we needed, and my boss Blair Mark said, well, we have to get this out this week. Well, we didn't get it out that week, but this corporate video went from concept to release in less than 2 weeks. So it shows that if you get everybody in alignment, you can actually make things happen really fast. So let me share that video with you.
This is going to be a very unique inflection point in the history of the world and Lockheed Martin.
I think that what's going on right now is really affecting our Black colleagues directly.
If you know a community is on fire, you would reach out to each one of those people that represent that community and say, hey, just wanted to let you know I was thinking about you. I know your community is having a hard time right now.
If anything, people realize that this is not just a myth or something that people over-exaggerate or make up. It really is happening out there. And at minimum, being aware of it and acknowledging that it's real is probably helpful.
It's exhausting. Like, the pain of the past was resurrected.
I think people are becoming a lot more honest because I think things have become a bit more in your face.
It's just so visible, right? Although it's been happening forever.
I'm going to live in where I feel right now, as long as it doesn't affect the work and my ability to deliver a great product and mission success.
And it's a lot of anger that it took basically everyone being locked in a house with COVID to actually see things that have been occurring for years with us.
Other races are starting to realize that silence is inadequate.
The silence is loud.
It's a difficult conversation, but if it's a difficult conversation, it's probably one worth having.
It is taxing on the Black folks who are asked to relive or to rehash things that are pretty well documented and available for people to find if they do the work.
We're not refuting that all lives matters. It's just a matter of recognizing that this particular group of people need your support in this moment.
Now I understand that, no, in order to have all lives matter, Black lives need this kind of focus.
If talking about this is an uncomfortable thing for you, then you should probably do it.
It's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to say, I hope you don't find this offensive, but I just wanted to ask, or I didn't quite understand, and let's get in there.
Whether we're prepared or not, we have to have the conversation. I don't think this is an issue that's going to go away anytime soon. It hasn't been an issue that has, happened overnight.
How to initiate these conversations with people who have the privilege of not having to deal with this on the regular.
I guess it's on me to approach them, to let them know that I'm here.
I like people engaging me about it just because we won't ever move past it until we're educated.
Sometimes I think we keep things at a superficial level, so we say non-controversial, and we decide non-controversial means we're respecting others. And I'm not sure if that's quite right.
There are people that are going to have different perspectives. You want to have the dialogue. You want people to be honest.
It's okay to just listen with the intent to understand. You don't have to immediately have a good response.
And that's a big part of being respectful. It's understanding that you cannot measure others the way you measure yourself.
I get concerned when people conflate this issue to be a political issue. It's not a political issue. It's not a Republican or Democrat issue. It's a human rights issue.
You're going to always have those people who aren't ready to receive the information. So those people aren't going to dial in and be a part of But if you get the people around those people to want to dial in and to want to have that dialogue, eventually it'll get to those people.
If you ask, explain why you're asking. I have an interest because of this, or I have a curiosity because of this, or I grew up seeing this.
Be genuine, to not come across and say that they are a supporter and an ally and then do things that are contradictory to that.
When you go to put together a panel or a group of people and thinking minds in a room, always do the second look back.
Am I really doing the right thing? Am I really approaching people? Am I really not judging them based on the color of their skin?
We understand the climate currently and we understand everyone has opinions, but just make sure we're all still following the 3LM values.
It's a very respectful company, and I feel that there's a lot of pride here in this company. I think that if we continue to build off of this and we continue to reinforce the values.
The company is trying to make everyone aware and understand that they really do want people to bring their whole selves to work.
I think whenever you begin to have dialogue with people that respect you and you respect them, and we both can be honest with each other, something's going to change.
So we released the video. It's been up. Many people have used it. Obviously, doesn't solve a problem as large as this. But one of the things that's been interesting is that at a company as large as ours, we certainly cover the full spectrum as we do across all of society. But the difference between being inside Lockheed Martin and being in our day-to-day work is that our value of respect others is a overlying principle. And so we're constantly working towards that. Long way to go, but that was part of the level of response that we wanted to focus on. So what else did we have to do that spring last year? Well, we normally, this has been part of Lockheed Martin's tradition for 25 years plus, is live ethics awareness training that starts in May. And so starting in end of March, when the lockdown started and everybody was scrambling, I know that we were part of several groups like this, IFBEC, DII, talking about, well, what are you guys doing? What are we doing about modifying the training? And how do we do this with social distancing, et cetera? And so we were, like everybody else, scrambling to figure out a plan. And so we knew that we had to delay our ethics awareness training, and we'll talk about that next. So we usually do it in May, but we were going to delay it until the fall. And so we have this workforce that's stressed. People on site are stressed. The people working from home are stressed. Leaders are stressed. Employees are stressed. What could we do? And so what we decided to do was create a little bit of comfort food. What we wanted to do was provide just short, light, but important topics for our employees to address a whole host of issues that they were facing. So what we did is we took our 4 favorite actors. One of the things that we have the wonderful luxury of is that our actors in many of our ethics training and our Integrity Minute series are become beloved and well known to our workforce. And lo and behold, these actors weren't working either because of COVID. So what we did is we approached them, and they were working from their homes with Zoom. And we created a series of 9 short videos that we released every 2 weeks that addressed some of the issues that employees were facing, dealing with working at home, dealing with distractions, dealing with sensitive information, dealing with mischarging, those supporting people who worked on site. And so we try to present all of those in a way that, again, would make people feel like we've got your back. So let me give you a little taste of what voicing our values every day looked like.
Didn't Jason organize this meeting?
Yep.
Jason, hey, we're here.
Okay, on 3, let's all call him. 1, 2, 3.
Jason! Hey,
Jason!
Hey, oh, yeah, I'm just, one sec. I was just getting a snack. I just, okay. I'm ready. I'm with you guys. Okay.
Okay, now that Jason has joined us, does anyone have any idea if we're going to do ethics training this year?
Wait, what are you talking about?
I heard we're not actually having ethics training this year.
Whoa. That's how a rumor gets started. Look, you might have noticed that it's not business as usual this year, but that doesn't change our values. So ethics awareness training has been reinvented for this year to make it easier and simpler for us to take it. Look, instead of the regular in-person sessions, we'll take an online version later this year.
But I love those video scenarios. You know, the ones with the professional actors?
Yeah, me too. But even though the format of the training is different this year, the core message of the importance of living our values is as important as ever.
That's for sure. We have some real challenges working on site, but we've seen some really great stuff. Man, living our values, baby.
Yeah, and we've also been planning on how to get back to our offices. I know some people have some concerns. I mean, I am a little nervous.
For me, I cannot wait to go back. Working from home has not been a vacation.
I'm with Olivia. I'm not good at time management.
I'm just trying to stay sane.
And healthy.
And keep our proprietary information secure.
I think we're going to get through this just fine. But yes, I miss those actors too.
So we do have the advantage of having these actors be well known. Jason, who you introduced, has been a celebrity within the organization. So it also gives people a little bit of, like a mascot, gives people a place to identify with. And so what we needed to do then was, as Jason gave a preview of, is, well, what were we going to do for ethics awareness training? Our mandate has always been threefold. It needs to be mandatory. We always have 100% certification that everybody who is employed has taken the training. It's always leader-led live sessions. Now, they're not always in person. Many parts of the organization have always been virtual, but they've been live. And it's always been the case that we use video-based scenarios for discussion. And for the past 10 years, the methodology has been based on Mary Gentile's Giving Voice to Values. And so we had produced and we were ready to roll with our ethics awareness training. We had just about presented it to the CEO to launch it, and then boom, we had to stop. So the question was, how do we replicate the things that were so important for us in an online training? What are the things we could do to keep people engaged? Because now obviously people were going to be taking it at their own pace without the benefit of their colleagues, without a leader, et cetera. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a taste of how we approached online training. And for us, this was a one-off. We're back to in-person, well, not in-person, live training this year, but we needed to do something for 2020. And we are going to test my radical skills here. Right. So what we did, again, we wanted to make this an easy transition. So you recognize that our favorite video character, Jason, well, we animated him. And we then had, instead of real people, we gave him some people to facilitate.
Ethics awareness training. As you can see, we're doing things a bit differently this year. We're not having live sessions, so you're going to miss the great discussions you always have. But we come up with solutions to challenges, don't we? This year, you're going to participate in ethics training with a different set of colleagues. Why don't we take a moment to introduce ourselves?
Hi, I'm Jeanette.
I'm William. Nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Lena.
Hey, how are you? I'm Alejandro.
Welcome. I'm Sophia.
Evan here. Nice to meet you.
A pretty animated group, huh? Well, what hasn't changed is our commitment to working at the highest levels of integrity. One way we do that is through our voicing our values techniques.
We've got this, Jason.
Ask questions. Make sure you're checking your motivations. What kind of questions will help the situation?
Obtain data. Could I be jumping to conclusions? Do I have all the facts I need?
And you got to talk to others. Get outside your own head and check how you are approaching the situation.
Yup, and reframe the issue. Can you find a way for everyone to benefit or see the bigger picture?
And if we can't resolve the issue and policies have been breached, we need to report violations.
Okay, let's get started. Do you remember Vivian, Al, and Gary? Probably not. Even if you did see them in an Integrity Minute or in an Ethics Awareness Training scenario, you likely wouldn't remember because, well, they weren't the main characters. They were the employees who had to interact with the people doing, or potentially doing, the wrong thing. They may have seemed to you to have just had a minor role, but they actually played a critical one. What if Vivian, Al, and Gary had successfully voiced their values? Romeen, Shelley, and Alex might have avoided getting into big trouble. That's what we're going to explore right now. We first met Vivian a few years ago. She's an electrical assembler working for Romeen. Let's see what's going on.
Hey Ramin, take a look at this. It looks damaged.
Don't worry, I'll grab one out of stock.
Is it okay to do that?
Sure, no worries. We do this all the time. Here, install this one.
Okay. Should I write a QA report?
Yeah, I have more important things to worry about than something like this.
Are you sure?
Are you questioning me?
No, I just want to make sure we're doing the right thing.
Vivian, enough. Just install the part, okay? We have a lot to get finished and these parts are urgent.
Hey Ramin, can I talk to you a minute about that part installation?
I told you, let it go.
I know, but I'm just worried because...
Vivian, go home. I don't have time for this.
So, what do you think? Was Vivian successful in raising the issue of the replacement part with Romeen?
I think so. She asked Romeen quite explicitly about whether they should write up the QA report, and he said no. So it's really on him now.
I disagree. Vivian raised the issue, but Romeen shut her down without giving her a valid reason. Vivian needs to escalate and call ethics.
Even though Romeen is her boss?
Well, yeah, if he's doing the wrong thing.
So what do you think? Was Vivian effective in her conversation with Romeen?
So what we did is we tried to, best as we could, recreate the dynamic of a group setting by letting the others start the conversation going. We wanted to set it up. So now the individual was basically affirming or disagreeing with one of the other participants. Here was Vivian effective in her conversation with Romeen? You could choose one of the three answers, again, based upon your knowledge of the voice and our values. And then what would happen is we entered a quick branching.
You're not letting Vivian off the hook, are you?
Why are we assuming Romeen is doing something wrong? Maybe Vivian just needs to understand why Romeen says the report isn't needed and not assume she has to either get Romeen to submit the report or report him.
Good point. Do you think Evan is right about Vivian?
So then what we wanted to do is, even though you chose one of three answers, well, you have a chance to, in part of this quote conversation, defend yourself. So we wanted to give people a chance, like in a real conversation, to rethink it. Do they want to double down and say, yep, I was right before, or do they want to rethink it? And so again, you would choose one of these three answers based upon maybe Evan was right. Maybe there was a way to change it. And so we would then close it out.
Interesting. So asking questions can be of others or even of ourselves. Nice job. Okay, let's see what Vivian decided to do.
And then what we would do is we would show them the conclusion, which again, it mirrors how we actually work real time in terms of our normal ethics awareness training, where we show an opening video, we have a group discussion, and then we show a close. So we tried as best we could to try to create a dynamic where we could recreate the benefits of the in-person live training in an online setting. And it seemed to work pretty well. We were a little bit, we were happy to get good reviews. We were unhappy when some of the reviews said, gee, I like this much better than what we did in the past, because we weren't going to be doing that in the past anymore. So, but it was a real positive, and we were part of a great dynamic that we had in that regard. Let's see if I can back to my. Great. So those are the three elements of what we worked on for last year. We really learned a lot. We learned, first of all, how to deeply listen. We needed to scramble to make sure that we were hearing the needs, not only from the employees, but from the facilitators. In our normal year, we have 5,000 or 10,000 sessions going on. And so each of those facilitators are line leaders at various levels. What were they going to feel comfortable with? When we were thinking about different options, we worked closely with our business areas, who actually spread out and spoke to leaders in manufacturing and engineering, administrative, to make sure we heard all the right pieces. We needed to be agile. We had to really invent things that we hadn't done before in order to meet the need. Around our organization, we are using the term a growth mindset. We want to be able to be in a position where we can see challenges as opportunities and not barriers. And this is probably the best proof of that. We were able to tackle things that we hadn't done before, but with an amazing team, we were able to actually overcome a lot of these challenges. So we took a lot of challenges in 2020, and we think we did a pretty good job, but we're never perfect. And 2021 is bringing on more challenges. So they need to be listening, agile, and bring a growth mindset is something that we're going to be doing for the long term, I believe. So I'll turn it back over to you, Ernie, but that's a highlight of what we were doing for the past year and a half.
That's great, David. Thank you so much. And I know that in just a few minutes, probably about another 7 minutes or so, we'll get to Asha Palmer from Conversant and get some of her commentary before we actually move into our interchange. But I do have a few questions for you, and I think one of them has to do with the technology aspect. Can you talk a little bit more about the enabling technology for actually pulling together the conversations, audio? And I just loved that. I know it resonated with a lot of our folks in the audience, just the topic, but also I think the effectiveness of the delivery. So what was the technology that you used? How did you execute on that?
So for the ethics awareness training, we found a wonderful partner who helped us develop the online module. We needed to keep it light. What we did is we have a learning management system, and this was now part of inserted as a course. So it needed to meet all the SCORM requirements. But we also have a lot of employees who work in either classified areas, they work on site at government installations, don't have access to our intranet. So we needed to also make it easily accessible online as well. And we also translated it. So we have 5 main company languages, Turkish, Spanish, French, and Polish. And so we translated all of the, both the video, well, captioned, and all the text and audio. We also tried to make sure that our characters that were portrayed were also representative of the workforce. So Lena, for example, was Polish. So we wanted to make sure that even though she was speaking English, that we felt that we could cover the breadth of our workforce.
And I think that's really an interesting point, because sometimes we think that the George Floyd situation was actually just a US issue primarily, but it was international. And I think that, you know, customizing that in different languages. But how did you do that with regard to the audio part? Did you have subtitles?
Yes, yeah, we had subtitles. We translated all of the text on the screens was designed in that language, and then we did have captioning for the audio. There's a point that you brought up about international. We've been discussing this for this year's training, is that for years past, when we thought about, quote, international, we would always think about it in terms of a international issue. Maybe it's a Foreign Corrupt Practices Act violation or export control. But the request that we're getting from our ethics officers who are not in the US is that the issues that our non-US employees face are the same as everybody else. And so let's just have non-US, non-American actors dealing with harassment and conflicts of interest and mischarging. And so it doesn't have to be, quote, an international case. It needs to be reflective of the diversity of the workforce.
Excellent point. With regard to your actors, I love it that you have your 4 actors inside the organization. How were those people selected and prepared for their role? Did they have kind of a natural kind of an inclination? How did you bring them into the process, and where did you draw them from? What parts of your organization?
The actors are all professional actors. Which I guess is a sign of our success, that so many employees feel like they are employees because they've gotten to know the company so well. The 4 that were representative have all been working with us for probably 10 years plus. So they're very familiar. And as I mentioned, these were all Los Angeles-based actors who were themselves working from their own homes because they weren't working. So it was a lot of fun. I mean, they got into it because this was a chance for them to reflect from their own experience. We have a lot of ad-libbing as we were doing the production, but our actors, they really enjoy working with us. We have a wonderful director, producer, Tony Dolan, and it's usually fun. And as I mentioned, Jason is a celebrity. We did a video shoot at one of our larger facilities a couple of years ago, and we're always very mindful of not disrupting the workflow during the shoot. We want to be quiet, be very discreet. And as soon as the workforce got notice that Jason was on site, it was like the Beatles, 1966. And here's this actor who is not so well known. I don't think anybody outside of Lockheed Martin would recognize him on the street, but he was mobbed. So that served him well, served us well.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you for explaining that process and that they were paid actors. What was the decision based on in terms of introducing animated characters at this time? Was that something you've been thinking about for a while? Was that something you thought would be particularly effective at this point or for that session or in a virtual space?
Yeah, so one of the things that we were thinking about is that if you have real people, then it's hard sometimes to fully empathize and get into their heads because you're watching them as a other. But as you work through animation, it creates the ability to start to internalize and see yourself more in that situation. So what we did is with the animation, we wanted to create as much as possible representing different demographics, but allowing employees to feel like they could be part of that discussion as best we could, given the constraints. So we thought that animation would be different. We didn't want to mimic the traditional in-person live training. We wanted to respect that. So we also wanted to make it different enough that for this one-off year, it would be something special and not be a too harsh of a transition back to business as usual as we have for this year.
That's great, David. Well, I think that we all can take away some real lessons and identify with what you said in terms of agility and having a growth mindset and having the permission and the resources and the urgency to move forward in a timely way. And I know we're going to talk more about that on the flip side when we get into the interchange. But I want to thank you so much for sharing your initiatives. And I look forward to visiting with you on the flip side. Awesome. And so, so I'd like to introduce now our third presenter, the third segment, Asha Palmer, who is the Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer and Executive Vice President for Converge. She is a former assistant attorney general and a litigator, and she has an extensive experience in ethics and compliance. Her expertise is in the areas of program development, enhancement, training and engagement, anti-bribery and corruption, risk assessments, and third-party management. And she's worked globally in terms of transforming ethics and compliance programs. And so for the next 10 minutes or so, Asha is going to share some of her reflections and thoughts about this topic, this theme, and also some of the things that she's heard from our presenters. Hi, Asha. Welcome.
Hi, Ernie. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for having me. I hope everyone who is here joining us has taken as much from the presenters as I have. Justin and David, those presentations were absolutely wonderful. What I got a lot from what you guys were saying was really that it's important for us as E&C practitioners to take the seat and the place of the learner, right? And the person who is ingesting that training to really understand, right? What is their situation? Who are they? What is relevant to them? How can you make that emotional connection that's either culturally relevant or relevant to their job, and really make that connection with them that draws them into the training and the engagement that you are delivering? And it's interesting because when I think about the fact that, this session is called innovative training, right? It's kind of crazy to think that the innovation is really for us as practitioners to not just think about the message we want to deliver, but to think about the person that we are delivering it to. And quite frankly, that is a fundamental shift in how we have approached training, right? Training is usually about telling someone what we want them to learn and know, as opposed to really understanding what is the learner's situation and how do we meet them where they are. Justin, you talked about the accessibility audit, right? It's so interesting because at Conversant, we have a product called the Ethics and Compliance Portal. And it really is a campaign engine to draw people into the conduct and the content of an ethics and compliance program. And I'm actually building one for us right now. And our team said, do you know whether this is compliant? And I was like, well, what do you mean I'm in ethics and compliance? And they said, no, but is the color palette compliant? And I will admit, I had absolutely no idea what they were talking about. And it took me through what you were talking about, Justin, which is, a person who is colorblind, a person who learns differently. Have you thought about when you're delivering that website, that training, that engagement, have you thought about whether they are able to receive it and understand it? And I think, again, we can think about it very, very specifically from, the accessibility message that you delivered, Justin, but we also have to think about it with the messages that we're delivering, right? I mean, bid rigging, right? I mean, I actually was an antitrust lawyer in a former life. And so I know what that means, but most people don't, right? And so we talk about, do you understand antitrust law? Of course they don't understand antitrust law. Most lawyers don't understand antitrust law. So how do you really make it, plain and simple enough so that when the people that we need to learn about it understand it? And one of the things I took from you, Justin, that was amazing was make it culturally relevant, right? Make it a character that they already know is trying to take you down, right? That's the character's identity. I think about maybe, I don't know, Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote or something, but we know those personalities and we know their intentions. So if you can make that emotional connection to the training that you're trying to deliver, then in those moments where people need to exercise that, they can identify with, oh, this person is really just trying to get me to do what they want to do. But wait, I need to think about what I actually should be doing. And I think we miss that. It was told to me, we've done a lot of behavioral science, thought leadership and training. And, someone said we used to tell stories all the time, right? As kids, like we learn through stories. And I have 3 very small kids who, they learn through stories and fantasy and like a storyline. And to bring that back to training and engagement is really something that's very, very powerful. And David, I mean, that video about George Floyd and Black Lives Matter literally brought chills to me. It brought me chills because, and it was interesting because I think I was expecting to see people. And the fact that I didn't, but I heard their voices and I heard some of the pain and I heard the emotion, it just brought that emotional connection on such a personal level to people that I have no idea what they look like or who they are, but some very, very, very vivid experiences that I think the world was going through. And we at Conversant did something called a training called Conversations, Not Confrontations. And it really was about the ability to talk about very difficult topics without it becoming a fist fight, right? I said, nobody wants to get into a bar fight, right? Like no one wants that back and forth, but we want to express how we feel. And so how do we as an organization begin to have conversations that are not confrontations? And that goes to things like George Floyd and Black Lives Matter, but then it also came into when you're confronting your manager about why they did something that you may perceive to be unethical, but may have real valid business justification or oversight. And are we able to diffuse those situations through conversations that don't become confrontations, right? Because that's how we really create that culture of integrity, of ethics and compliance that doesn't lead to, over excessive investigations or distrust amongst employees, but really leads to a greater understanding, greater bystander intervention, and greater dialogue within our companies. So I want to thank you both for those. I know I just have about 4 more minutes. I was actually supposed to talk about something else, and that is kind of how you deliver the training. And one of the things that I have become an evangelist of is the method of pushing and pulling training. So employing all of the methodologies that both Justin and David talked about, how do you adequately deliver that to your employees? And I believe that it should be both through a push and a pull. Okay, Asha, what are you talking about? Pushing and pulling, right? Well, we are very accustomed to pushing training. So we push out training on an annual basis. I think I heard David mention, we do it annually, used to do it through live, now have had to adapt a bit. But most people push out training in some form or fashion annually. Some people will push out training situationally based, right? So if you're about to travel, you have to go through a training. If you're about to, open up a contract for a new vendor, you have to go to training. So there's also ways to push training on a situational basis. If you're in finance, so there's a way to do it functionally, based on your position within the organization and what you will encounter based on that position. So those are the common ways I think that we push out training. But my question for innovation to everyone here is, do you pull people in to be a learner? Do you pull people in to want to know more, to want to come to you or your program to solve problems? Okay, how do you do that? I think, we've talked about gamification and prize and, maybe quizzes and things that bring people to say, do you know the answer to this, right? Terrible example, but like if you were to pull people in and say, do you know what FCPA means, right? Yeah, probably not, right? But like if you pull people in so that they have to then go find the answer and find it on your website, then maybe they will understand how to navigate through your website. Contests, portals, where training and engagement can sit for long periods of time. Justin, you talked about your app. Where you can go and kind of navigate to where you want to go, not just because it's required, but maybe because something you learned in that training triggered that you need to go there, right? And then are we measuring those things, right? Are we measuring whether people are pulled into learning about the risk areas that we care about? I talked about our ethics and compliance portal at Conversant. The reason we love it so much is because it is, and Justin, you use this term too, a front door to your compliance program where people can engage with you as they wish, when they wish, and then you can measure their engagement. And that's the last thing I'm going to say. The great thing about when you pull people into your program is you can measure whether it actually works. Right? So if they go to a training that's like, and on their own, right? So I click on that bid rigging because I'm about to go into, a tender. I click on that training. Well, it's 5 minutes long. If I only stayed for like 30 seconds, then maybe there's something wrong with my training. Maybe it's not something wrong with the learner, right? And so by measuring those kind of behaviors and activities of our learners, we can then see where we as a program may be having a few missteps and have room to improve. If we have a whole menu of things, take websites, right? We say think like a marketer, right? And Justin's a marketer, which is why he's got one up on all of us. Think like a marketer. What marketers do is they look at their menu of all the things they have for sale. If no one is buying that item, they don't say, well, why is no one buying it? They switch it out for new inventory. And so really understanding the behaviors of our learners, enticing and encouraging people to become learners is something I think we as ethics and compliance professionals really need to begin to unpack and understand in ways that we haven't in the past. And I think there, once we have the content, once we have made that accessible really to all of our learners, then the question is, do they come to us and really want to learn? So I think I'm up on time, Ernie. I could go on forever, but I won't. And as you can see, it excites me.
Thank you. And that's why we love having you in our program, Sasha. You bring such enthusiasm and such insights. And thank you for listening so carefully and offering some commentary on the presentations, as well as what's important for us to consider in terms of pushing and pulling training. And so we're going to be going into our interchange and continuing the conversation. And one of the great things about that for our audience is that they'll have the opportunity to unmute themselves and to come into direct dialogue with you as well. And you'll have a chance to talk with each other in ways that you haven't had a chance to. And so we want everybody to join us in the interchange. If you have time, that'll be for another half hour. And so let me tell you how to get over there. Before we close out this room, I want you to visualize that we're sitting in a room and we're all going to walk over to another room. And so we want you to join that room by one of two ways. You can click on the gold button on your session page that's right below your video and your description. You also can wait until the Zoom room link is posted in the chat here before the session ends. And so those are the two ways that you can join. And so let's see if the chat, the link gets posted in the chat here. Riley, our wonderful Pathable technician, says he's, okay, got it. Okay, and so let's end this session and we will see you all on the flip side in BPF Interchange.